Incentive program.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We're going to have a pledge and invocation by Commissioner Murphy.
Dear Lord, we want to thank you for this day, and Lord, we want to thank you for the oversight you've had on Columbia County during these trying times. Lord, we ask that all the people in the United States and the world that's affected by this pandemic, we ask that you put your blessed hands upon them and help heal them and bring them from this. Lord, as we go into this meeting, give us guidance and direction on trying to make the best decisions we can that affect each and every person here in Columbia County. Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Staff, will there be any additions or deletions of the agenda?
Chair, we do have three things that we'd ask to add tonight that are time sensitive, and also add some discussion on baseball tournaments. The three things that we have for additions are proclamation 2020P07 for the 46th annual National EMS Week, a plan to reopen short-term vacation rentals, and a letter to the Georgia Environmental Protection Division in reference to Valdosta spills.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So move as amended.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Williams, second by Commissioner Ford. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, first we'll do the proclamation since it requires no board action. This is proclamation number 2020P-07. It's the 46th annual National EMS Week. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical service system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, and others. And whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishment of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Service Week. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Columbia County Board of County Commissioners do hereby declare this week of May 7th through 23rd as Emergency Medical Service Week, and the board encourages the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities duly adopted this 21st day of May, 2020.
Move to adopt
Motion.
proclamation.
Motion by Commissioner Williams, second by Commissioner Ford. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, first up, we're going to let Tom Moffices from the Health Department come give us an update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, thank you for your time. It's been a trying time the last 10 weeks, going on 12 weeks dealing with COVID-19. First chance I've had to come in to address the board, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. I provided some documentation for you, and for anybody that's in the audience, that is available online. That's on the COVID-19 Florida Department of Health site. Anybody can gain that information. I just wanted to have some printouts to provide the board in hand. First item I just wanted to address for a minute is, as COVID-19 has changed, so have the testing priorities, and I know that the board's very aware of the testing priorities because we've had those documents shared previously. So on May 11th, they changed again. So I wanted you to have a copy of that just so you could see, instead of multiple priorities, 1, 2, 3 anymore, CDC and Florida Department of Health have changed that. There's a high priority and a priority list. And that really distinguishes how the testing goes and potentially which lab it goes to. So if they are priority labs, they will typically go through the state lab. And the reason for that, the state lab is much quicker for us. We can usually get a 24 to 48 hour turnaround time, especially with those that are medically ill in the hospital, first responders, and things like that. We have to have quick answers because they're serving the public, right? I want you to understand that now, as we progressed into this, their testing is available from multiple vendors now. A lot of you are familiar with LabCorp, Quest. Those are some of the common ones. The primary care physicians that are here locally, they all have the ability to do the testing now. They can get that testing from the LabCorp and Quest, and they can do those on site in their facilities. So, you know, that's a tremendous change where the health department was doing probably 80 to 85% of the testing up to this point. So we're glad that the labs have come online and provided that availability for the primary care physicians, and we hope that they're going to take that torch and run with it and provide those services to their clients. The second document that I provided you just as a county summary for Columbia County, and I know that, again, that is available on the state website to pull down. Currently, there are 119 cases here in Columbia County. On that document, which is really good, middle of the page, it shows the laboratory testing. So it goes day by day, shows a 2-week picture. There's a number at the top of that, a number at the bottom, and then a percentage in that. And it shows the number of tests that have cleared the state lab. It's not necessarily the number of tests we have done that particular day. So any tests that go through private vendors, the state lab, until they are registered in the state of Florida Department of Health system, it's not counted. And, you know, that is the same with any deaths that are related to COVID-19. People may be very aware of a death that may take place, but until it is reported through the state system, we're unable to report that to the community at large. The last document that I shared with you is just a 7-day trend. It'll show what all counties in Florida are doing over the last 7 days, whether they're increasing, decreasing, whether they've had a large jump. And again, it's just a checkbox for you to look at and see how we fare with other counties. Overall, the state's done an outstanding job. As we continue to open up, that's where we're going to have to monitor even more. Just be very diligent in what we do. are vigilant in what we do, and just make smart decisions. This virus is not done by any means. It's still out there, and we just have to be smart in what we do, maintain social distancing. If you're in close contact with folks, use the PPE if you have it, and just pay attention to your surroundings. The last thing I wanted to share is just some numbers. Okay, our team has been very active for the last couple of months, and I just wanted to go through some numbers and share them with you. So as you already know, the current positive cases here in Columbia County, 119. Current negative tests that have been administered, 2,841. Total test count is 2,983. So again, about 85% of that has come through the health department. So we've been extremely active within the community over this time. That total number equates to 4% of Columbia's population. And there was 2% that prior to May 1st that was taking place. We've had a major push since the beginning of May. The governor had a big push to open up testing. We finally had supplies on hand where we could do that. And I can tell you, as of the day, we have reached the 2% already for the month of May here in Columbia County. And that's what they were hoping that we would achieve. So within that, unfortunately, I have to report that 25 of our cases are tied to Columbia Correctional, and I can say that because Columbia Correctional and all Department of Corrections have their own website out there. They post that data daily and update the public, so that's public information. So there's 25 inmates there. There's one staff member, and those the inmates do count against Columbia's total number. I wanted to update you on the drive-through testing that we've done. And again, once we had the supplies, we were able to do that within the community. We were very proud of that and went out. So May 1st, we were in Fort White. That was our first drive-by like that. We did 42 people. Okay, it was good indoctrination for us on what to do, what not to do, how to make changes and move forward. May 5th in Lake City. And this is at Wilson Park. We did 140. May 7th, back in Fort White, we did 99. So you can see we definitely figured out how to get it right that time and get folks through a lot quicker. And May 8th, Lake City, 155. May 12th, Lake City, 143. May 14th, Fort White, 72. May 16th. In Lake City, and this was our best day out of all of them. And we were there for just under 3 hours, and we're pretty impressed with this. We did 190 folks during that, so it's just under 1 a minute. So we were very impressed with that and what we had done. And then May 19th, we did 98 here in Lake City. So we still have another test scheduled for next Tuesday here in Lake City. That'll be from 9 to 11. And again, that's open for anybody who wants to have testing. We encourage them to come out. Next Thursday, we'll also be testing in Hamilton County, in Jasper, behind the health department there. And that is also open. So, if there's somebody that is here or monitoring online and you want to get tested, those are 2 areas that you can come to next week. And that's open to the public. Stay in your car. You just drive through, we fill out some paperwork, test you, and in quick order, you're getting your results back. The labs have been really good. I just want to just take a minute and talk about my staff. It's in all, it's a small health department, small staff, and I couldn't be more proud of those folks. They have stepped up day in, day out. They are working sometimes 7 days a week. And when I say 12 and 18-hour days, I mean that. These folks have been there. They've been dedicated. They've done everything that's needed and far exceeded that for the citizens of Columbia County. So, commissioners, I hope you understand that and how proud I am of them. And, if you see them, please acknowledge them because they have worked hard for the community. And, we continue to do that. I appreciate the support that we've had through the emergency manager. Shane has been great with everything. County manager, Ben Scott's been outstanding. And to the commission, anytime we've needed something, you have been there to assist, and we truly appreciate that more than you know. And we're going to continue to be in constant contact with you. We've been in constant contact with the community and tried to share everything that we possibly can. We're very transparent of what's going on. We've answered any questions that are asked, and we've even worked extremely well with the paper to make sure that all this communication gets out to the public to make sure that folks are aware. So with that, I hope I was not too long. I appreciate you affording me the time to come before you today, and if there's any questions that you have, I'll be glad to attempt to answer those.
Board?
Tom, I think you did an excellent job. The communication has been stellar. I mean, the emails we get every day and like you said, the paper, I mean, I've been in tune the whole time, thanks to you, and I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Same here, Tom. I appreciate it. And Tom's not shy. He'll call you at 8:30, 8:45 at night too. And I appreciate that.
That is correct.
And I'll echo the comments about your staff as somebody who has to deal with them politically and professionally. They've done an awesome job.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Tom. You've done a great job.
And we got a long way to go.
Yes, sir. We're prepared.
The uncertainty, is out there. I tell everybody I haven't had very many things that scare me in my life, but this scares me.
Yes.
And then when I see where the United States has their largest jump in cases yesterday than they had during I would say the heart of it in March and April. And I wonder if that contribute that to what the state of Texas said, well, our numbers went up because we're doing more testing. But I just hope that people realize what you said when you said, be conscious of what you're surrounding and wear your mask and do the thing you should do. Because if we don't, we're going to be back where we started from for the last 90 days. And I know we got to open the economy back up, but when we got over 93,000 people in the United States already died, and the spike on testing positive going back up, it just make it. I'm just going to dig my hole a little deeper and go in it. And I don't go anywhere. I come to the board meeting, and I might go to the office. I don't go to no restaurants. I don't go anywhere. I get in my hole in my room and I stay. But for that reason, I just don't want to take any chances. And when if we more would do that, I had to go to Lowe's on Saturday, and I could not believe how many people was in there without masks on, and just like this. And I just backed up and went back to the house. I said, I don't really need what I need to come at. So, but we appreciate what you do, and definitely we appreciate your staff. And we know they've been working hard to do the things they need to do for Columbia County citizens, and we appreciate you and them very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you, Tom. All right, next up is public hearings. Brandon Stubbs.
Good evening, Chair, other members of the board. Brandon Stubbs, Community Development Coordinator for Columbia County. The item before you this evening is an appeal that was filed by Stu Lilper to appeal the decision of the Board of Adjustment for Special Exception SC 0608. The issue with that Stu file was whether or not the sign that was posted on the property was posted in the correct location. Of course, staff, we contend that, yes, it was posted correctly in accordance with law. And if you have any questions, I'm here. I think Mr. Foreman has a few things he wants to add.
Chairman, I'm going to request that we move this to the next meeting. Stu couldn't be here tonight because of his doctor telling him that he can't attend a public meeting. I think both parties have agreed that the next meeting would be sufficient for them.
I think Counselor Foreman has a few words to say.
Now, see, Mr. Lilker sent all of us an email yesterday. And the things the board needs to understand is this special exception was granted back in December for the construction of this cell phone tower. And counsel for the applicant, who again had their request for special exception granted, has been very gracious, and even before the pandemic had agreed to postpone this hearing date. It was set and reset. Most recently, Mr. Lilker again asked to move it. I advised Mr. Lilker that so long as the other side did not object, we would coordinate that. Mr. Johnston stated very clearly in his email he could not agree to a further reschedule. And so it's properly before the board tonight. However, in light of his request, he did make the request to the entire board. It's perfectly appropriate, as Commissioner Ford has done, to make a motion to table it, which, Mr. Chair, if you would like to entertain that, that's what you would do, but we would need to table it to a date certain.
So has the applicant in fact agreed that June would be okay?
He is not, however, in my conversations with him, he understands the circumstances of the pandemic and everything, and he certainly graciously accepts whatever the board chose to do. And he's not here tonight. He did not want to, give the impression that he was being overly aggressive, but, his client's been waiting for 5 months now to start working on a tower. They want to get started, so he just couldn't agree to it. But procedurally, Mr. Ford's motion is.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the table,
I'll second it.
and we now have a second by Commissioner Nash, and we'll open it up for discussion.
If you want to, for the people out here or us?
Well, for us first.
Chair.
But if you want a date specific, our first meeting in June.
Yes, sir. That would be the only requirement, is just when you table, you need to table to a date certain. And that way we can, the notice from this motion is the notice for that next hearing.
Okay.
Well, we have writing with an email from Mr. Lilker that he's agreeable for the first meeting in June. So I would say we set it for date specific for that date. And whatever happens on that date, it moves forward. So.
Okay, well, any other board comment?
Joe, I think I understood you to say that, as long as the company is not ready to install the tower, we are not really handicapping them by keep, posting this. What if they come in and say, we got this special exception, it's been protested, we need to get this finished so we'll know one way or the other what we're gonna do.
So Commissioner, but for the pandemic, I think I'd be a lot more concerned about what you're talking about. The pandemic's kind of changed all these procedural rules. Even the Supreme Court of Florida has come back and said, give more time, give more time. And again, where the board sits on this, we're in a quasi-judicial function, and I'm advising you in your quasi-judicial capacity. You're like the judge. So you're not really taking sides on these issues. The only thing I can tell you is that both sides did not consent to a continuance, but they understand you might grant the continuance. And so that's the only motion at issue here. I think if I asked Mr. Johnston, actually I know it, they would have liked to start building this tower at the beginning of the year, but they also understand process. Mm-hmm. And they have a very good attorney. Mr. Johnston has been very conscientious, very thorough in his communications with myself and with Mr. Stubbs. So I think if you do grant this continuance, I don't think it's going to result in the applicant suing us for some reason. Okay. If that's the point of your concern. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll see if anybody's got public comment first. Any public comment on this matter? All right, we're going to need to amend the motion to date specific next meeting.
Yeah, what is that, June 6th? June 4th. So we'll suspend this to the June 4th meeting, and at that time, we'll proceed with it.
And I'll amend my second.
Okay, so I have an amended motion and an amended second. Any more discussion, board? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
The second item I have for you is the second and final reading and second final public hearing for CPA 1902, is a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment to amend the future land use map in its entirety. Planning and Zoning Board held a public hearing on November 19th, 2019, and voted 4-0 to recommend approval of CPA 1902 to the Board of County Commission. There was no members of the public that spoke in opposition at that meeting. The Board of County Commission held a public hearing on December 19, 2019, and voted 5-0 to adopt CPA 1902 on first reading. No members of the public spoke in opposition of that either. After the first reading, we transmitted the CPA 1902 to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunities and all the other state and local agencies required under law. There were a couple comments, but there was no comments that related to adverse impacts or important state resources or facilities. Like I said, there was one technical assistance comment related to traffic in schools. However, it is not a basis for objection or appeal. FDOT did not make any objections related to traffic, mind you. And tonight, staff recommends that the Board of County Commission approve the CPA 1902 ordinance 2019-15 upon second and final reading, and authorize county staff to transmit the adopted amendment to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and all other state and local agencies under state expedited review process. If there's any questions, if you want me to go back over some of the areas that were subject to amend, I'll be happy to. But this was the same presentation or same thing that was before the board on the December 19th meeting.
Okay, I'll now declare the public hearing open. Anybody here to speak on this matter? Not seeing any, I will declare the public hearing closed. What is the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt for the final hearing on CPA 1902, ordinance number 2019-15.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Williams, second by Commissioner Murphy. Any comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you very much. I'm respectfully requesting we table this public hearing. Because of COVID, the state of Florida has moved the date for the CDBG grant applications and has not formalized the notice of funding opportunity yet, and therefore it's really not something we can do tonight.
Okay, we'll table it. Do we have to have a motion to table it, or can we do that as just?
You should take a motion, sir.
Motion to table.
Motion by Commissioner Williams,
Second.
second by Commissioner Ford. Any comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Williams, second by Commissioner Nash. All in favor say aye.
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 I also make a motion to
Hang on,
adopt. the
hang on.
consent-
Have a discussion on
Beg pardon?
before we go through the.
I didn't hear you, sir.
I said I'd like to discuss one of the items on the consent agenda,
Just pull it for discussion.
approved for discussion or second for discussion.
Which one?
11,
Number 11. Okay,
and what I got here is the utility. I spoke with Ben and Kevin throughout the week on the Comcast utility permit. As I'm sure a lot of y'all are dealing with it, also the availability of internet service in certain areas of the county. In my situation, I'm just ironically, I can see in the constituents can also a couple of Comcast lines, but when we try to reach out to them, it's just the fact that we don't service that area. So what I'm asking staff to do is get Ben and appropriate people to reach out to Comcast and where we can earmark some of these areas and get them to assist us in trying to come up with a intelligent, point when these people got to ask that. Because, I understand where they're coming from. you know, you can sit right there and look 300 yards over there, you see a line, but you can't get service. You know? And this is Comcast we're talking about. Of course, I'm not saying they're doing nothing wrong. I just tried to do Tim Murphy style, but all I get is the same response when I call the land on a couple other places like that. But me and Ben had a discussion about it. He recommended that we maybe start to reach out to him, try to set up some type of meeting or Ben clarify for everybody what your discussion was.
Yes, sir. Basically, what we were talking about is we know that Kevin has people that apply and sign for these permits. So those are the people that are actually out there doing the work on the ground. When you call the local office, you don't really get an answer. Well, the answer is we don't have service to that area. That's the only answer that Commissioner Murphy's been receiving. So what we'd like to do is ask those representatives from Comcast to come to a board meeting and give us a presentation of what it takes to move cable and internet service into certain areas of the county.
I'd like to see that myself. I have several people on 240 that's in the same situation. They say the Comcast line is right down from their house, but they won't bring it on down to them, so.
Well, we're right. 240 is actually, that's one of the big problems, you know. I shouldn't say problem, but that's where the interest is coming. You're on that side, we're on this side, and it's the same thing.
In the past, when we have asked them to come before the board, they always would use the statement that we don't get any requests. And the next reason there's not enough homes in the area to undertake that initial expense to run that cable out in areas and no one signs up to it. So we hear from them because, you know, I get the same thing out Winfield way. Why we can't get cable TV, and you know, I tell them, I say, you know, it's not up to the county, but we can ask contest would they survey the area again to make sure that there might be enough interest in them running the cable out there and then recoup their expense.
And I agree with you, Ron, but, and that's you've been here 40 years, and you've been hearing that same thing. Well, you know, they won't come to the board, but, and if it takes it, I'll deny that permit. I'll be one to make the motion to deny it, and I bet you that gets them here. It's, you know, I hate to be that way, but, you know, we're just trying to be, you know, we're trying to be professional about it. And the truth is, these come across our table, you know, several times a month. And so if Ben reaches out to them in a professional manner and we get the same answer, power's in our hand the next time.
Okay, any other
We got a way to
comment?
get them to the table.
Any other comment? You're not asking to pull this item or anything right now? You just
No,
wanna
not
discuss-
asking to pull it. No,
Okay.
just, you know, I don't want them to come out of the gate as a wild bull, but the bull is mad. I'd say that.
Okay, well, then we've already motioned and seconded and passed the consent agenda. What's that? Okay, yeah, let's sit down, take a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Williams, second by Commissioner Murphy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Brandon, you're up again.
Look at an item for discussion. This is a proposed general map update to the official zoning atlas of the land development regulations. The proposed map brings areas within the 2018 designated urban development area into compliance with the future land use map designations. And of course, this map is the zoning map, so this overlays the land use map that y'all just adopted. So with all the changes that y'all made with the land use, this map would bring all the zoning in compliance with that land use map. So there's other things that we did as well. There were some inconsistencies in the county on the zoning map where we had different uses than what the zoning was there for. Like we had some subdivisions that are 30, 40 years old that are mobile home subdivisions that were zoned for residential uses only. And over time, we had little spot zonings within the subdivision because people came in to get permits. and couldn't get a permit because it was zoned for single family, but everything in the subdivision is mobile home. And so we cleaned up areas, things like that, or proposing to clean up, and I'll go through each one of those areas individually. If you look at the map on your left-hand side, right here, that's one of the areas that was just expanded within the DUDA. The current zoning is agriculture 3, so what we're proposing is a rural residential zoning that would correlate with the residential very low density land use that y'all just adopted. We have this neighborhood right here, which is on the northwest corner of Branford Highway and 242. It's been there since, I don't know, 50s. It was zoned agriculture 3. Those are actually half-acre lots, so we're proposing residential single-family 2 to match the residential low-density land use. On the bottom down here, most of this area will go from A3 to a rural residential. We do have this, I think this is like Springfield Estates, the subdivision on the south side of County Road 242, which is also a half-acre lot subdivision, so to keep in consistency with the densities. That's being proposed for residential single family 2. You have this, so you see on the map, I want to make sure I get it right. Oh, sorry. This area right here, is a little rectangle. Currently, that's residential single family 2. That is a mobile home subdivision. There's not a single family anywhere close to there. And that was one of the subdivisions where we've had hodgepodge rezonings. So we're just proposing to change that whole subdivision to single family residential mobile home 2. If you look at this map here on the right-hand side, this is all area that was adopted within the DUDA. So this area is going from A3 to RSF2 and keeping with the consistency of the adjacent districts. This area will go from A3 to commercial intensive to be consistent with what the commercial and the future land use map just adopted. This area here will go from A3 to rural residential. There is an area here where we had some commercial neighborhood, and on the future land use map, that will now, it was changed to commercial, now changed to commercial general. This area right here, this subdivision, I'm sure y'all are pretty familiar with, is a mobile home subdivision right there on the corner of Pine Mount and Burley. That's being proposed to change to residential single family mobile home 2 as well. The picture here to your left, this right here was already within the designated urban development area. It was designated as highway interchange, but as you can see, this is all single family residences up in here. Plus you have this subdivision here blocked by the railroad tracks. There was absolutely zero way for commercial development. You had to go all the way up, like I think Moore Road, turn into this subdivision, go down this road. There was no way. So the future land use map that you just adopted changed that to residential low density. And we're proposing a rural residential to keep in consistency with the uses and the homes in that area and to protect those. Map on your right, this is on the east side of town. This parcel right here, to give you a reference, is the current sheriff's office. So that was added in the 2018 DUDA. So we're proposing all the sheriff's office and everything around it to be commercial intensive. And the existing, there's an existing junkyard, salvage yard that sits right there to keep in consistency with the existing use, proposing industrial.
Brendan, go back, or next one, go back.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble with this thing. This one?
Yeah. There under the, where the leg come down, right there, what did you say?
This one?
Yeah, that's going to what now?
That's going from residential single family two to rural residential, which rural residential allows for single family or mobile homes. And it's in keeping with the 1 acre lots in that subdivision.
And what size lots those will be?
1 acre.
1 acre lots.
There are some that are 3 to 4 acres in there, but most of them are 1 acre lots.
You know, I had two developers that I spoke with over the last week or so that was complaining about what we are just trying to fix. There's not any within the core of the city where the utilities are. There's no mobile home subdivision. Zoning for mobile home subdivision. So what we are doing now will fix that, wouldn't it?
Some of those areas, but these are mainly areas that are already subdivisions with mobile homes in it that don't allow them. Now, there are some areas that are appropriate or may be appropriate if the owners want to sell the property to a developer to do a mobile home subdivision. There's, as you're aware, down like 252B, there's, I think, 2 mobile home subdivisions down there near the preserve. There's some additional land that could potentially be rezoned to allow for mobile homes. So there, I think Turner Road and Brown Road are the same way. There are some properties out there that would be suitable. So if you have somebody that is looking for property that might be suitable to develop for mobile home subdivision, they can give me a call and I can go through the areas. Let's see. The map on your left-hand side, this is one of the areas, this is already within the DUDA. That was before it was expanded, but this is Troy. That's County Road 252B. Branford Highway sits right here. As you're aware, this right here, there's nothing but mobile homes in that. And that's one of those subdivisions that was done for residential single family 2. Staff is proposing residential single family 2, mobile home 2 to keep consistency with that subdivision and existing uses. This area as well, this is nothing but a mobile home subdivision. This is, y'all familiar, this is that area that floods on Troy Street right there where subdivision is, but this area would be changed to residential single family mobile home 2, as well as this subdivision. These two subdivisions have nothing but mobile homes located in them. So those would fix those issues. The next area here on your right, this is the Ellisville DUDA area. There is a little area right here where we're proposing to expand the commercial highway interchange south by a quarter mile from the existing area. The rest of the area within the DUDA will become rural residential. And of course, this would allow for some residential development down in Ellisville. Since we have the water and sewer, that would be able to connect to that. And in the future, there might be other uses like somebody might want commercial intensive, but for now we're proposing to expand the highway interchange and do the rest in a rural residential classification. Now this one's going to be kind of hard to see. I'm sorry, I apologize, but this area here is environmentally sensitive area. According to our comprehensive plan, I can't remember the exact year, but it was about 10 years ago, the county adopted the Ichitochini Basin watershed as the official environmentally sensitive area within the comprehensive plan. The future land use map was changed to adopt this shortly after, but the zoning map never reflected the change from A3 to environmentally sensitive area 2. So it can keep it consistent with our comprehensive plan, future land use element, and the future land use map. This has been proposed to match exactly the ESA that is designated on the future land use map has been in existence for the past 9 or 10 years. I do believe that's the last one. And that's the entire future land or zoning atlas as it sits as a whole. And then that's what's being proposed there.
Brandon, what is the requirements of the environmentally sensitive area? What does that allow you to be able to do with that?
Basically, the main difference between an ESA and an A3 district is an ESA requires a minimum of 10 acres. Currently, the future land use map designation already is ESA. So even if you wanted to develop and the zoning was A3, but because the underlying future land use requires 10 acres, they still have to have a minimum of 10 acres. So that doesn't change anything. The biggest factor is within the ESA, you cannot have any intensive agriculture. So in an ag, you can apply for an intensive ag use. In A3, you cannot have any intensive ag.
Such as feedlots and stuff like that?
Correct. No, currently there are no intensive agriculture operations that are within that ESA area anyway. So it doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't change anything as far as that's concerned. Like I said, intensive agriculture is a special exception that has to go before the board. So it would require board approval anyways.
So, pull that back up again, Brandon. The ESA area.
There it is.
Okay, so I see Kate's there? And Buster.
It goes kind of down 47, pretty much through Columbia City, part of it does. It starts up just south of County Road 242. And one branch goes toward from basically kind of south of 242 over by Branford Highway, meanders kind of southeast, and it meets up with the area that comes from all the way over by the high school almost. A little bit, it's kind of south of the high school. It's, but it goes kind of from east to west and goes out through the intersection, kind of south of the intersection of the I-75-47 interchange, and just kind of follows about approximately a quarter mile south of 242, excuse me. It just kind of goes parallel, and then it all goes into a tributary right here. As you can see, it crosses King Street right there and kind of follows Bishop, comes down, crosses Malden, follows State Road 47. This is Columbia City right here. Crosses Malden and goes out towards Ishtoney, which is down here. Give you some reference. That's State Road 47 right there. That's Carpenter Street. Like I said, that's Columbia City, that area.
All right.
Of course, there's Furlong right there.
Brendan, I've got one concern on the slide in Ellisville, the interchange,
Okay.
the corner of 441 and County Road 238.
Okay.
If at that corner across from the dollar store, there's actually a farm, a cow farm, a field. What's this going to do to him?
It will not, well, do you mean like affect them tax wise?
Yes.
This will not affect anything tax wise. So in other words, this is just a map amendment. The property appraiser, while they may look at what the land use or zoning is, they don't appraise based upon land use and zoning. So if they have an active agricultural operation, they still get their ag exemption.
But it actually could benefit him if he tried to sell it down the road because of his own.
Correct.
Okay, so it's okay.
Yeah, it will not change his ag exemption. It won't change the fact that he can still farm it and keep that farming exemption. But if he ever decided to sell it to a developer, he could sell it as a commercial property.
Okay,
Any other questions?
that was it. Board, anything else?
And, my requested motion is that you direct, county manager, direct staff to proceed with this, amendment and, put it for the planning and zoning board for recommendation back to this board of county commission.
So move on that.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Murphy and a second by Commissioner Nash. Any discussion? Any public discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. That motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
My computer's being slow. All right, Counselor, you're up.
Oh, Council, I like that. Commissioners, this evening, I'm requesting setting an adoption hearing on a noise control ordinance for June 18th, 2020. The ordinance I've drafted up is very much work in progress. We can absolutely alter it in any way, shape, or form that you would like to. However, I did draft it taking into consideration the concerns that were expressed at our previous workshops, which I think at this point are all the way back in the fall. This is using that nuisance theory approach. The Florida Constitution says that government shall make provision for protection against all forms of pollution, including noise pollution. And so that's where you're invoking that constitutional authority. And then you're using the nuisance theory by saying if it's an unreasonably loud or raucous noise that's affecting people, particularly in the privacy of their homes, and when they're trying to sleep at night, things like that, gives law enforcement the authority to go in and stop. We didn't use a lot of technical measurements, decibel readings and things like that, like we talked about at the workshop. That tends to be very expensive enforcement, and it's always challenged, because what happens is they challenge the calibration of your equipment and all that sort of stuff, whereas this allows for a pretty simple, I think Commissioner Witt's expression, which applies here, is common sense. Should you be making loud and raucous noises that can be heard inside somebody else's house at 2 o'clock in the morning? I think most people would agree not. And that's what reasonable means, right? So is it reasonable to make that kind of noise at 2 o'clock in the morning? No, it's not. So it would be prohibited under this ordinance. There's also plenty of protections in here for industrial uses and things like that, and for times of day. All that being said, I know there's a strong public desire to move forward with this. If we set the adoption hearing date, we know what deadline we're working against. I also would be remiss if I didn't tell you the sheriff has taken an interest in this. He's reached out to me. He's prepared to do what he needs to do to equip his guys to enforce whatever you ultimately approve. So he shares your concern. He actually came to my office with a lot of good material from other jurisdictions that had implemented similar ordinances.
I know I've already had a couple people from the public who want to speak on this. I would just say I did try to make it clear when I talked to the paper on this that the purpose of the night was to set the public hearing, so that we could not act or take any action on this tonight other than set the public hearing. But I will at this time open it up for members of the public who wish to speak on the noise ordinance.
I live in Eastside Village.
Sir, can you come up to the microphone?
I'm not loud enough now.
Okay.
I live in Eastside Village.
I need your name.
She's got to put you in the record.
R.A. Green, I'm the last 12, I'm going by initial.
That's fine.
I live in Eastside Village, which is the intersection of Bell and State Road 100 going to St. Butler. And often we have guys come through there and try to rattle the whole neighborhood with their noise on their car. It even rattles my parcel. Keep up, I'm gonna have to put new windows in my house. But I think in favor of this motion to do something about the noise. If I got a neighbor here, it's easier than I am, so he can tell his story.
Okay. Sir, give your name for the clerk.
Dennis Bumward. My residential property borders 100 in May. At the red light, between 5 and 6 o'clock, 5 to 7, I have vehicles coming up, sitting at the red light, throw them in the face, rattles my windows, my dogs run. Now, I just went ahead and put up a privacy fence, an inch thick, like 6 inch by 8 foot. So hopefully, reduce that noise. Unfortunately, it didn't work. And then between 10 o'clock and 11 p.m., I go through the same thing. I would recommend, do you think, very thoughtfully, is to support this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
And what's making the noise?
Automobiles, they have the big bass, boom.
Radio.
Boom box, yeah.
Boom boxes.
Any other members of the public wish to speak?
And it's every day. And between 10 and 11 at night. I'm not sure if we're going through to the correctional center to work. I don't stand out there with a flashlight and watch them work out the license plate. No.
Okay. We encourage you and your neighbors experiencing the same thing to come when we set the public hearing and give us more of those sentiments. Board, any comments?
Nope, I think it's important. I'm getting a lot of complaints, like the gentleman stated, within subdivisions. Me and Kevin have put up signs in quiet neighborhoods and stuff, and it doesn't seem to work. You know, there's effort. Maybe we can put up a sign with the ordinance number, it'll help out. And some enforcement will, I'm definitely for it.
Okay. Any thoughts on when you want to do this hearing? My only, being cautious, I would almost say let's set it for the second meeting in June. It just gives more time
That's what I.
for the you know, the pandemic to hopefully we keep recovering and keep opening up, because I feel like this is going to be a very contentious meeting when that goes that night. So if some,
Mr. Chair, for the benefit of the commissioners who will be reviewing this as we move forward, the concerns that were just addressed by the members of the public in 74-105 subs E and F, both address radio, television, boombox, phonograph, stereo, and loudspeakers, amplifiers, and public address systems, similar devices where those noises are being projected within or adjacent to residential and noise-sensitive areas. So these gentlemen's concerns, again, based on the language that's in this, would be addressed. But I do know, and for the public's information, that when there's concerns raised, you guys always ask me, so I'm just trying to head off a couple of phone calls.
yes, sir. Do I have a motion from the board?
So move.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Williams and a second by Commissioner Ford. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Scott.
Chair, if it's okay with you, I'd like to take care of the additions first. If that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. The first item that we have is, as you're aware, the governor came out with a new order that said that in order to open short-term vacation rentals, each county was to submit a plan to the Division of Business and Professional Regulation. That plan would then be approved by them before we could actually say we're opening short-term vacation rentals. We have received several calls asking if they could open their short-term vacation rentals. Basically, these are houses down on the river that rent their houses, cabins, what have you, out, and they've asked us to present this plan. Basically, the plan, it runs through, it's for you there, it runs through several things that are required by the owners to do. One of the biggest is that they cannot rent to areas that have been identified as high risk through the executive order of the governor. It also gives them rules for cleaning surface areas, remote check-ins when available, that they're encouraged to put away any loose objects such as throw pillows and the like. So what we're asking for is permission to forward this form of the short-term vacation rentals to the Division of Business and Professional Regulations.
Move to do so, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Williams,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Ford. Any more comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
The next item that we have is a letter addressed to Lewis Hayes, who is the manager for watershed compliance at the Environmental Protection Division in Georgia. As you're aware, several instances of spills have happened in Valdosta, which causes pollution to our rivers. Commissioner Williams was appointed by this board to serve on the North Florida Regional Planning Council's water working group. They had a conference call yesterday afternoon, and they asked that we submit this letter because the consent order is about to expire. And so what we're asking for in this letter is that they consider to extend this consent letter, and also for Valdosta to make reparations to citizens that have been affected by this, whether they've had to put in a new water softening system or whether they've had to pay for water testing. So what we're asking for is board approval for the chairman to sign this letter and submit to Georgia Environmental Protection Division.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Commissioner Williams.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Murphy. Any discussion?
Board, this has been a long problem for the Witchacoochee, then goes into the Swanee, from the Swanee to the Gulf of Mexico, where there's millions of gallons of raw sewage in that river. And we have been battling this problem, I guess, for the last 8 years now. And the biggest problem that we have is when they have a spill, the time and the manner in which they contact the state of Florida that they have a spill, it's sometimes 3-4 days afterward. And so it's creating havoc for those people that make their living on those rivers, for fishing and canoeing or whatever they do to make that to make those dollars to support themselves. So we are asking our comments to the Georgia Environmental Protection Group to do some things that we think would enhance the ability to make sure they can do the water testing, and they pay for it. And they negotiated a fine from $386,000 down to $152,000, and we want them to set that money aside to reimburse those individuals that have extreme losses due to the spills of the raw sewage into the Witchacoochee. So it's a good ordinance, and we appreciate the board doing it, and the time for comment is on the 27th, so we couldn't wait till the next board meeting to do so.
Okay. Any other comment? All right.
Who wrote this letter?
Well, we got a letter from Madison, and they sent us a draft copy, and then Ben put his words on the same thing by acting. We didn't want every letter to be the same, so we took the concept and Ben reworded the letter that the Madison County have hired them an environmental attorney, and they drafted that letter, and we just took concept from that letter that they drafted, so it wouldn't all be the same letter from every county.
So if I understand this right, there's already been a judgment of an amount of money that they've got to spend to repay people back for this?
Well, we're asking, and the consent order here does not say that, but we are asking for that to be part of the consent order. And the testing was going to be only for 1 year. We asked for continuous testing.
Any more comment? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item that I have is baseball tournaments. We have been requested to approve a USSSA tournament. We basically have already opened up the ball fields. So what they're asking for is before they go forward on the first weekend of June, they have approximately 85 teams registered for this tournament. And they want to know for sure Columbia County is going to allow them, this is USSSA, allow them to come have this tournament. They have put together a 21-page document that on how they expect their tournaments to be held during this COVID crisis. I spoke to Clint Pittman this afternoon, asked him if his staff was ready and prepared, if the field was ready, and they said they were definitely ready. They were ready to get back to work on tournaments. And so what we're asking for is board direction. Basically, we're asking for your blessing to allow these tournaments to proceed.
I'll make a motion that we open the fields back up for tournaments.
I second.
Motion by Commissioner Ford, second by Commissioner Murphy. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to add, we had a TDC meeting on this yesterday. And several counties in Florida have already opened it back up for these tournaments. And I think we owe it to our businesses in Columbia County, such as restaurants and motels that have been hurting through this pandemic, to open this tournament back up. They could use the revenue for their businesses. And I think it's time to move on.
Yeah, I concur. I think that a lot of people get confused. We're not the state. We have not been the social distancing police. We have taken our direction from the state because we legally cannot do things less conservative than the state does. We can exceed them if we have not, but we can't back down the order from the state. Phase 1 clearly allows for sporting events with no spectators, and I think this falls within phase 1, so it's highly appropriate, I believe.
Well, the good thing when Ben explained to me, USSSA already set their interior guidelines, being affiliated with them for many, many years. You know, at least the people that are coming and gonna be performing, taking place in these tournaments, they already know what the ground rules are. And it's going to be the same here as it is in Alachua County, Orlando, or wherever it is, if you're a USSSA sanctioned operation. And so I commend them for that. And I think, are we going to boom at the restaurants? Probably not, but any bit will help right now because I think
Ben, there are guidelines that go along with the opening up of all these activities. Is Clint have those guidelines that the governor have set forth, things you should do in his beginning to open up the state. Now, we're going to be adhering to those guidelines with the tournament, am I correct?
Yes. And we're going to take the USSSA rules and we're going to take them a little step further. So USSSA also says that one of their first things is that you have to abide by local rules. And so Clint and Alden are going to get together and make sure that we're going to change the way we work the concession stands, because you're going to have people out there, they'll be hot thirsty. You're going to have to provide some concessions. We're going to change it to where they can't come lean up on the window and to be right there. They're going to make some rules for additional cleaning of the restrooms, additional cleaning of and the spacing in the dugouts, and things like that. They're going to put those rules together on top of what USSSA has already put together.
Well, and then I think this pandemic has changed the way that we have to operate, but I don't think it really stops us from being able to operate. So we just have to do it in a safe manner.
And I agree with everybody, and I think everybody's aware of it. The restaurants and the hotels and stuff, they're aware of the situation. They've taken appropriate action to keep people safe, and I'm sure the USAAA has done the same. And if we all make a conscious effort to keep everybody safe, I think it'll be successful.
Okay. Any other comment? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Okay, the next item that we have is the housing incentive program. As you'll recall, a few meetings back, this board assigned Commissioner Ford and David Kraus to meet with the DEDC and come up with a revised plan or revised format for the housing incentive program. They did meet. They made several changes. Some of the big changes was time specific that they put on there, that they had to begin the project with a certain amount of time. So 18 months was the time they had to begin the project. They did want to say that incentives would begin at a certain time. So the incentives had to begin by the 3rd year of the agreement. The rebates would only last for a 5-year period. And you would have to have a economic development agreement in place before you could have the incentives come into play. So basically, the form that's before you would come back to this board with an economic development agreement saying, we think this meets these criteria, and we're applying for these rebates through an economic development agreement. And they set the parameters to be, the investment would be between $4 and $7 million. They would receive an 85% rebate for 5 years. The investment from $7 to $10 million would receive a 90% annual rebate for 5 years. And investment greater than $10 million would receive a 95% annual rebate for 5 years. So we're asking for board direction on moving forward with this.
Board.
Mr. Ford?
I would like to say, me and David has worked on this pretty rigorously. We've talked to several developers in the community, got their input on it. We've talked to the BEDC board with the Chamber of Commerce. And with all the input that we've gotten from everyone that we've talked to, I think we've come up with a pretty good plan. One thing I would just like to make sure everybody's aware of, this costs the county no money, except for the money they would be getting from this development from the initial 5 years. It's not like we're paying them to do anything. It's basically, we're just refunding them a percentage back of the tax revenue they generate for the first 5 years. So it's not like we're giving them $1 million incentive to come to town or something like that. So like we have in some of the commercial establishments. If for some reason construction stops for 180 days, that's the end of it at that time. And another thing we put on there, that it has to come back before the board within 3 years to make any changes or to reassess the program. So we'll know in 3 years if it's a money generator or economic incentive for development, or if we need to make some changes to it that's not working out like we need to do. So at this time, I would like to have, if David's got anything to say about it, he worked on it pretty hard himself, so.
Yeah, it's basically, the revenues the land already generates is going to continue to generate. Any rebate comes from future generated revenues that don't already exist, which is why there's limited impact. You can't put penalties and stuff in the economic development agreement if there's things you want to put in the economic development agreement. So you do have ways to refine it if you need to.
So basically, they have to apply to the Economic Development Board, and they got to use this sheet to score, and then they decide, and they make a recommendation.
Basically,
Back
they
to
have
us.
to check every block on this sheet. If they check every item on this list, they qualify for it automatically. But they have to check every item on the list. They have to meet every requirement on here.
So whatever the tax status is currently, they keep paying that. We're just delaying the additional tax status by the development if they meet these $4 million to $10 million criteria for 5 years. So it costs the taxpayers nothing. It costs the county nothing. It just delays when we start receiving the tax revenue, but it encourages builders to put this stuff on the tax rolls, put these big developments on the tax rolls. So so if it works, it's a net win for us, and you've got the protections in it. And I think y'all did a great job tweaking this and putting it together.
Well, just for clarification, Commissioner Ford, not saying you misspoke, but you're saying they got to check every box on here, either yes or no, and it qualifies. But I don't think that's
If they
what
check
you're saying.
every box, yes, they qualify.
Oh, okay.
In other words, everyone won't come back before the board for approval or disapproval. Basically, if they meet all the requirements on this list, they qualify. If they check no on any requirement, they don't qualify.
What comes back to the board is the economic development agreement, which has specific things that need to be added to any economic development agreement. This would just be part of that economic development.
So okay, and this card has come a long ways since we first started talking about this thing. But who's to verify all the information on here? And for clarification, when I brought this up before, simply the gentleman, of course, most of us know him, Mr. Williams, that come up with this idea. He's factual. You read here, you back it up here. Like I said before publicly, I'm protecting Columbia County for in the future. So who's the verifier of all this?
Basically, the developer would submit it, and it would be up to county staff to verify it and or have experts that we can rely on, like the
Real estate board.
real estate board or the planning council to assist us in verifying facts, data is accurate, correct, and these are correct.
I mean, because that's the only thing I was arguing the point was that there needs to be checks and balances, but it needs to be spelled out in this too. And I realize you're going to cover it in the economic, I mean, I had a scenario thrown at me Monday, and they're right. That's like Mr. Ford said. That's why I questioned him on it, just for clarification. Yes, boom, you qualify. And Rocky's right, but you can sit here and get a Philadelphia lawyer, twist this and, chew it up. And I realize it's a work in progress because it's a pretty neat plan. And, but that's my only thing. Do I think, Joel, you can maybe lead us down this road, in the economic development agreement, can you cover yourself in that to override the scorecard, so to speak?
Yeah, so the scorecard's going to get them in the door and get them negotiating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And staff will definitely have to verify that all the assertions, you'll note the way the card's set up is the applicant has to demonstrate these things.
Mm-hmm.
We don't go out. So when all the information is demonstrated, there's a $40,000 increase in the completed project, all that kind of stuff. We can cross-check that with property appraiser's office. But as we work into this gets them negotiating on that economic development agreement. And if there's something particular about a project, excuse me, that makes one of these a little bit more difficult to determine or something like that, we can always shift some burden on the applicant because they have to ask for it every year. Even though they qualify, they have to come back every year and say, hey, I want my rebate. Hey, I want my rebate. That'll give us, like you're saying, Commissioner, checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
Every year you have a chance to look at this, make sure it's all being complied with. And if it in fact is, then you issue the rebate. And that's the other point is, it is a rebate. The taxes will have to be paid. They'll have to be confirmed as paid. And then the county portion only would be able to be paid back.
Yeah, that's something I didn't say, but it is ad valorem only. It doesn't have any effect on the fire assessment, the garbage assessment, Lakeshore Hospital, Swanee Water Management. It is ad valorem only.
School board.
School board gets theirs, yes.
Okay, any more board comment? Any public comment? Okay, board, wishes of the board?
Well, I'll make a motion that we bring it to resolution.
All right, motion by Commissioner Ford, second by Commissioner Williams. All those in favor say aye.
One more thing, if I may. Being the chair of the Economic Development Board, just for the record, it has been turned down twice. Now, what was turned down the first time was nothing like this right here. What was turned down the second time is Rocky and them did a great job here. But I still lay on the side of caution for the simple fact that, and I realize we're going to cover ourselves in the economic development director. And just like I told Tim, I know Tim, I trust him, and I know everything he said here was factual. I just, some of the issues, we asking all these people to serve on these boards. And one of the things that's come up in the CRC about, commissioners not being the chair of these type of organization, I'm not sure I'm going to argue with that a whole lot. I'm not trying to run from a problem, but, I've got a staff, I've got a board of 8 people, businessmen, investors and everything that unanimously turned this down. I'm not saying I've come a long ways with this, but nothing against Tim, nothing against his board, but I've got to back the committee that I chair. And it's a tough decision for me because I know for a fact there is a need for housing in this community. And I do think I had to eat crow on the Blanche a little bit. I never would have thought them things would run it out. Me and Tim had numerous discussions relevant to this. I think the need's coming for this right here. But, there's an argument on the other side also. Growth warrants investment and always has, always will. And of course, I've talked to the same developers I'm sure Mr. Ford's talked to that talked dead negative of it back then. And that's what that's where I'm kind of a little bit, I ain't a little bit on the fence. I'm on the fence for the simple fact I don't see none of them in this room tonight. And so I'm just, but that's just my input.
Well, the board you sit on, correct me, I mean, I wasn't at the meeting, but didn't they say that they didn't think they should rule on this because it's not commercial? And it don't create any long-lasting jobs? I mean, what was their reason? That's what I understood.
One of the main reasons, was simply that they don't think you should, and not put no words in any particular person about it, but the consensus was, and Tim can back me up on this if he feels like he would need to. And David, you was at every one of them too. They just feel like there's not a need in our economic growth pattern to subsidize residential / multifamily housing. Number one. There was quite a bit of a disagreement that this is not a job provider. It is a temporary job provider, not coming from Tim Murphy. The consensus was it is a temporary job producer for, the construction jobs and what have you. But on a discussion that me and Mr. Williams had, and he presented on the floor, and it made sense. We do see the need. We heard a few. We heard a few requests or statements, if you want to say, from industry that we have a hard time filling some of these jobs here. But as I'm sure everybody's aware of it here, our Chamber of Commerce director approached us and the board, and she had numerous investors call her, numerous developers call her, and was super excited that Columbia County was going down this road. And I asked her, I said, Ms. Pinto, I said, that's going to help me make my decision. If you could get letters of support from these various people that you're talking to, it'll really help me, because I think that's a bona fide thing. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, I don't know, I've never gotten anything.
Well, I think, and I'll stand on, in conversations about incentives such as this, when I was running for office a year and a half ago, I always said the same thing. It's got to come down to return on investment. Now, you're right. It doesn't create a lot of jobs. It may create some initial construction jobs. But if you can add $4 to $10 million in housing on the tax rolls, and you're not giving up any current tax revenue, all you're doing is delaying a percentage of the tax revenue for 5 years. That's a return on investment to the county. That's a good idea. So, I mean, to me, I stand on that.
And believe me, I'm not debating anybody on this, but Mr. Krause explained that me and David had a discussion in his office the other day, relevant to the $3,000 deal. And I'm convinced that, and I think Tim and David and anybody that was in our meetings would back me on this 100%. I was convinced that some of the advisory board didn't interpret it that way, that boom, Tim and them's going to run out there, or whoever the team may be, or their taxes just go to zero until this thing starts carrying. But it's $3,000 on this particular parcel. I think it's $3,000. It's less than $4,000 anyway. But you're right, Mr. Witt. You would not be losing that ratio of it.
Well, I took this project on because I believe in this project. I think it's a good project, and I think we have a good plan here. So
well, I'll commend y'all for what you've done, because I can tell you it's, and I know David and Tim will too. It's a lot better than the first one, and it's y'all come up with some pretty creative measures in there. And I'm like I said, I'm not and we know these are advisory boards that we share on. In respect of these people that dedicate their time to all the TDC, this board, that board, we see what's going on with the CRC right now. Do we show them the due respect, the modified version? Because I'll be honest with you, none of them's called me on it. Candidates or not. On this.
So they've never seen this?
Oh, well, it's been online all week long.
No, I'm talking about you've never taken it before the economic
No,
board.
absolutely not, because because of the COVID, we had to cancel our our economic development meeting.
Yeah, I was under the impression that they didn't want to take it up because they didn't think it was in their wheelhouse.
But they
Yeah, it
have not
wasn't
seen this revised scorecard. We have not had that. Correct me if I'm right, David?
The original scorecard went to TDC and that's TDC.
Eco.
Development Advisory Board. There was a revision to it, it went to the Economic Advisory Board. Both times the board voted not to recommend it. Then came to this board. The board then created the committee. The Economic Development Board has not seen the results.
Yeah. And if the board decided to send it back to the economic development, we do everything. We could have a meeting in here for that matter. But I would love for Mr. Ford to come to share the experiences, him and David and Tim, because this thing is black and white compared to what it was when it started out, in my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I call for question on the motion.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Next item that we have, Commissioners, is the interlocal agreement with the City of Lake City for the wastewater treatment facility. As you know, we received the grant from the state for $10.2 million to build this east side sewer plant. And the plan was for us to construct the plant and to turn the plant over to the city once it's completed. We have been working on a design with the city staff. As we mentioned in the workshop earlier this morning, that we were looking at adding the tanks for the leachate from the landfill to this facility. And we're working with the city. And at first, the city kind of balked on that. And we said, well, we really need this. We're not going to put it all in leachate all at one time. We're going to put these tanks out here. It'll drip into the system, so to say. And so that they come along with that. So we finally, after, I don't know how many iterations of this, David, we've gone, David and I have sat down with them so many times and marked it back and forth. One of the sticking points was, how do we reserve space in that facility for the industrial park? What we don't want to do is go out there and build a facility and we don't have a current client out there, but they start sending enough sewer there that it takes up all the capacity of the plant. So what we came to an understanding of is they would reserve 60% of that capacity right off the bat for the industrial park. Now, if we get people out there quicker than that, then we can use more of that capacity. But at a minimum, they got to reserve 60% capacity. Once they get up to a certain amount, which I think it's 80% of capacity, they've got to start planning a new expansion based on DEP rules anyway. So they will turn around and we will help them. We made the promise that we would help them look for grants and things to expand in the future, but they would be responsible for expanding that in the future. So what we're asking for is for the board to approve the interlocal agreement between the City of Lake City and Columbia County for the wastewater treatment facility.
Ben, one question on the future plant expansion here on the agreement here.
Yes, sir.
The 80 is not spelled out in here, is that correct?
No, that's a DEP rule. So
Okay.
You got to start getting your permitting ready. It's kind of like what we have in Ellisville. Once we hit that 80% capacity, then we got to start figuring out how we're going to expand. Okay. That's just a DEP regulation. That's not part of the rules there.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Nash, second by Commissioner Murphy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
The next item that we have, and I'm just going to change this a little bit from my, from the posting on of the agenda last Friday. After we posted this on the agenda, it was brought to our attention that there could be some possible purchasing violations by what we had in the original lease agreement. The original lease agreement calls for the county to utilize the owner of the facility's preferred builder. And so that's the way we proceeded. We received the estimate from the preferred builder, and that's what this was on the agenda. However, I asked the county attorney to look into this, that was there going to be any issues with that purchasing wise. And there is an attorney general opinion that he provided to me that basically said, even though you negotiated that in the contract, you can't do that direct purchasing. You would still have to bid it out. However, we do believe we can go back and amend the lease agreement, and that's the reason we put it in there. It was either they pay for it or we pay for it. If they pay for it, then the lease changes. So what we're asking the board to do tonight is just give us permission to amend that lease to, instead of us doing the construction, the owner would do the construction. We'd reimburse the owners for it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Nash, second by Commissioner Williams. Any discussion? Maybe you can get us a better deal. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next item that we have is a budget amendment for Rum Island. As you know, there's a few things in here that we've added based on the meeting that we had down there in Fort White, some of the issues that we've come up with. So like the collection box and the cameras, but there's some other things that kind of came about as we're building the restrooms and doing the bank restorations that we need to complete. So what we're asking for is to approve budget amendment 20-44 for the additional repairs and items at Rum Island in the amount of $21,805.
I'll make a motion, we approve BA 20-44 for Rum Island, and hopefully we have Rum Island open pretty quick.
Motion by Commissioner Ford,
Second.
second by Commissioner Williams. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Rocky, they doing the shoreline right now?
They're working down there now,
Good.
so hopefully next 4 to 6 weeks we'll be pretty close.
The next item that we have, this is the grinder pump bid that we received on the detention facility. As you recall, we came to you with a budget of $200,000 for this project. After we got the bids in, the bids came in at $287,410 was the low bid. And when you look at the bid tabulations, you'll see that the numbers are a little bit different because we were able to take out an 8-inch gravity PVC and bar screen. That's the reason that the numbers don't exactly match exactly what's on the bid tabulation. But what we're recommending is for the board to approve BA 20-45 for $88,000 and award bid and contract low bidder Petticoat Smith Civil Contractors in the amount of $287,410.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Williams,
Second.
second by Commissioner Nash. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
The next item that we have is project 20-2005, which is Registered Lane, Omar Terrace, and Coke Glen. So resurfacing project. We did receive 2 bids, Anderson Columbia at $214,066. John Hint Construction at $195,368. Our recommended motion is to award the bid to the low bidder, John C. Hint Construction, in the amount of $195,368.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Williams,
Second.
second by Commissioner Ford. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
The next item that we have is Annie Maddox Park renovations. As you'll recall, as part of our lease agreement with Annie Maddox, we provide $200,000 in repairs in order for them to give us a 10-year lease on the Annie Maddox Park facilities. We bid out the first item that they have is basically adding restrooms to their existing building in a little concession type area. And so we received the bids on that. The low bid was $171,995. So we're asking to award bid number 20-20F for the Annie Maddox Park renovation to low bidder, Anglin Construction Company, in the amount of $171,995.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Williams,
I'll second discussion.
Second by Commissioner Murphy.
Ben,
Discussion.
in the future, if you would, cause I went for the backup, there's no backup here. And I know, I know we had discussion on this. I was just, because I knew there were several things that we were required to do or asked to do. And just for the public's knowledge also, if they go online looking at this, well, what are they doing for $172,000? Just a little bit more detail as far as that, if you would. You know what I'm saying on the backup? Because on the backup here, it didn't say, it just had the bid tabulations, but it didn't have a description of what the actual, what they're doing. Like you just said a minute ago about the concession stands. I don't see it there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree because I'm just now seeing this, says amendments received, add 1, add 2. I mean, what does that mean?
Okay. Those are the bid packages. The bid packages are all online, so that bid number 20-20, you want us to put the bid package, the whole bid?
No, just,
Scope of work.
Scope of work would be all right.
Scope of
I
work.
don't even know about a scope of work, Ben, just saying that we're, concession stand construction at Andy Maddox. Then if they want to go into detail farther, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
So
no, I'm not saying fill it up with the 200 pages.
Better description than any Mac Park renovations.
I think it should be scope of work.
Well, I mean, the scope of work is on the,
And
Yeah,
Ben,
but just put the scope of work on here. We know what it is. But just don't leave it up for a gray area because we'll be having the same conversation. Well, there's not enough information.
okay,
Put
what
the
did you
scope of work
say?
on it.
What did you say before, Ben? I
The-
mean,
That's not a problem. The only thing, most of the time with the road projects, you can kind of see that in there because they've got
Yeah.
a detailed list of
okay,
an itemized list in there. So that's, I'll get with purchasing, make sure, look, if you don't have a detailed bid list, so if you got a detailed bid list, that's,
Yeah.
then you're good there.
Right.
But if you don't have a detailed bid list, then let's provide the scope of work.
Yeah, I really don't even know what they're doing there at Andy Maddox Park.
we approved the scope of work, guys, in detail in a prior meeting before bid.
Yeah, I think what they're saying though is for
Well, I
the,
know what they're
for the
saying, but Frank
public.
just said, you know, we approved what they were gonna do on the $200,000. So we did, he might not have a backup for it, but we're not just spending $200,000 and nobody knew what we're doing. It was approved by this board.
Yeah, but that's not the
no
point.
way.
No,
way
I
am saying-
I know what the point is, but I don't want anybody to think that we're doing work or awarding work
Nobody
without
thinks
the
that.
approval of this board. And I understand that there's not a backup to it because it's not a regular bid like a road bid where they itemize each bid item that they do it on. And the other thing that surprised me too, we didn't get a local contractor to bid on this project.
But it's busy.
Yeah, but the point is that when you look at this particular thing, all your information's right here. You don't go to the website to look at it, or you don't go back 10 meetings for what we approved there. It should be simple. It should be right here.
ABC.
When somebody, the public out there comes and looks at this, it should be right there. Scope of work.
I understand that, Bucky, but some of y'all acting like you never heard of this before.
No,
I mean, we awarded the bid, we awarded the job based on the amount of money that was put in this project. We had an itemized list under the negotiation with Andy Maddox, recreation area.
that we approved.
Here's what they asked for us to do for a 10-year lease. It was itemized out.
That's right.
So it's not like we haven't seen it before, but I understand what you're saying. It should have been, and this right here should have been an itemized list. This is what we're getting for this, and that.
My
Understand
point
that?
is, a lot of times we agree to put something out for bid and we don't see it again for 6 months.
Well, I remember though.
So, but it's your district, so you.
Well, it ain't gotta be my district. I remember
But
a lot. I remember some,
No, I remember the whole, I agree with Ron. I remember exactly us, agreeing to this and we voted on it unanimously. I support it 100%. But as I said in my point at the beginning, that if the public goes on our line and they sit there, then the first thing, then they're going to call, they could call, well, what are you bidding on here? Because there's nothing in here. We're doing the roof, we're doing the back. It's just a simple scope, like Mr. Nash said. I agree with that. You know, that's all I was saying. I mean, because I supported 100%, and I know we already bid it on this back when. 'Cause
So is
that
this
was
to
in our
re-roof the
lease
building,
agreement for
Doug?
10 years.
No, this is an addition to the building.
Addition to.
Yeah, so, and that's where your point kind of comes across to me, is there was a list, and you may think this is the whole list, but this is just the first phase.
No, that's just, yeah, phase one or so, yeah, because there's a lot more money in this that we agreed to put in there in 10 years, yeah.
It's basically just for transparency. You put it there, it's there, people get the backup, they look at it. And nobody's accusing
And
anybody of
that's my
anything.
point. We talked about a lot of things. I mean, I was just wondering which one this was.
Just trying to make things a little bit better.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries.
Yeah, this is a new me, a little more relaxed. Just want to see the information.
Our last item that we have is RFQ 20-20I, and this is to hire an engineering firm, architectural firm, to come in and look at our EOC and either determine whether it can be retrofitted or if we need to design a new EOC. This was a grant that was brought from the state to small counties after the last hurricanes in the Panhandle, where some EOCs were totally demolished and they had nowhere to work out of. They decided that they would, part of the mitigation was to give small counties these grants. And so what we're doing is we put out an RFP. We actually had 10 architects send in proposals for this. This is a planning grant only. So this isn't for going forward to do a design, build, or anything like that. This is for them to come and look at ours and say whether they can or can't, and whether they recommend us either retrofitting this or building a new building. The top ranked firm is Architect Design Group, and we're recommending negotiating a contract with Architect Design Group.
Board,
Go ahead. Oh, I thought, was that you, Toby? I thought it was Ron hollering that. What was the grant amount for, Ben, on this?
200,000.
Okay.
anybody else? Motion?
I make a motion, we pass RFQ 2020-1.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ford, second by Commissioner Murphy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Mr. Chair, on a note on that, when I went over the agenda with Ben and we have the conversation, I said, Ben, what happened if they recommend and give us the money to build a new center? Where would you put it? And I said, to me, a good place would be put it right there on Balconars on the property we can buy from the TDC that backs up to the Boys Club. It's on the main thoroughfare that's going through, and then we don't have to go out and buy other properties. We can utilize some of that TDC property and just reimburse them back for it.
I know the State Emergency Management Office is pushing this in our counties and several counties where they don't deem the EOC buildings are sturdy enough for disaster times, for hurricane times. I just hope that if they do recommend it, they come through with the money to build it too.
That was the initial plan. That's what they said they were going to do, was that they were going to give these planning grants and then they would come up with the money for construction. You know, that's back before, the economy went to where it's at now too. Commissioners, that's all I have for this evening. I thank you.
Okay, right now we'll take open public comments for 2 minutes. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. My name is Russ Adler. I live in District 1 off of Cheshire Road, Gilbert Court. I'm here to not just ask, but implore that you guys, I'm going to thank you first for executing the contract with the state and with the federal government for the block grant. So I don't get it wrong. What is it, Mr. Kraus?
It's the hazard mitigation grant program and community development block grant disaster recovery.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that. What I'm here to ask is, the process has been slowed down tremendously due to COVID and other concerns. So north of $800,000 was awarded. It's sitting in the coffers waiting to be spent. The 25% add-on from the state, you guys executed that contract. I want to thank you again for that. What we're waiting on now is the state has put some stipulations in place that is delaying us. So I want to go back to some personal experiences. I've spent multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan in war zones. Now, I chose to be there. I didn't write that check up to and including my life like our service members did. I went there to work. It was a choice that I made, and there's an expectation of danger when you enter certain areas. In my profession, I've responded to several disasters. Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Maria, spent several months in Puerto Rico after that's happened. Our property that we live on, I moved there 26 years ago, thanks to a beautiful lady over there agreeing to spend the rest of her life with me. I don't know if she's considering that a life sentence or not, but anyway, so be it. I've been there and it was nice, it was tranquil, and it was wonderful. But now it floods very regularly. So what I'm asking is that the county spends $3,000 to $5,000 to, can I have a few more seconds?
Yes, go ahead.
$3,000 to $5,000 to begin the appraisal process. So the 11 families that are adversely affected by the continuous development and the continuous flooding that's been occurring over the last few years to expedite the process. So when the state mandated parameters are met, that there's not much more waiting time than what there already is. So if I can ask the board to maybe make a motion to offer, is there an exact figure that's been presented, Mr. Kraus, from the appraisals? Okay. Yeah, so appraisals, RFQs have been submitted and accepted. I'm just asking you to come and use the county money to spend it to expedite the process because there's a whole lot of stress involved with hurricane season looming and basically becoming refugees. And it's happened very frequently. And I appreciate your time.
David, what is the glitch between the timeline that the state will give that money to the county in order to do so? I mean, what's the holdup now?
The limit is this: we have the hazard mitigation grant. We can spend the hazard mitigation grant at any time we want. We applied for the community development block grant and disaster recovery to provide the 25% match, or about $281,000. It's a CDBG grant. So you just approved it. They just awarded it to us, I think, the last meeting. We had our kickoff meeting. We're trying to move it as quickly as possible. But because it's a CDBG grant, you cannot spend any money until after you complete the environmental review. You can't hire your grant administrator to do an RFQ process. So we are at a point now where we can begin the environmental review process, begin the RFP process to select somebody to administer the CDBG grant. But we can't spend any CDBG money until after the environmental review is completed and approved, and they give us a release of funds, which usually takes about 5 to 6 months.
And it's been over a year, over a year.
David, with the HMTP pay for the appraisals?
They take 75% of any expenditure. We can try and juggle things, but we can't do the appraisals under the CDBG GR.
That's what I'm saying. So the $10,000 cost for appraisal, we could still receive 75% of that.
Correct.
So we would be able to apply the CDBG towards.
Correct.
If by doing something like that, do we jeopardize any portion of the grant by spending money other than the grant money in advance?
No.
Because I know there's some grants that you can't spend any money because it's not reimbursable.
Correct, and it's the same here. You cannot spend any money that would be CDBG money until it's done. What Ben is saying is, you can spend the HMGP money, that's already approved, no problem. But you'll have to come up with the match to the HMGP money. Because any money you spend now has to come from your pocket, not the CDBG.
So what are we talking money-wise if we do
So
that?
you're talking about $2,500. Go ahead and get it started. So
That's
what the overall grant, what David was saying, it's a 75-25. Well, and normally the county has to pay that 25% when we apply for these. Well, the state had this CDBG grant that pays our 25%. So If you wanted, I'm just giving you the options. If you wanted to speed it up and we paid for the appraisals, we'd apply for the HMGP and we'd only get 75% of whatever we paid for the appraisals back.
It's 2,500 total?
No, it's
Just the
10,000.
appraisal.
No, I'm talking about what we'd have to spend out of pocket is 2,500 total.
Just for the appraisals. Yes.
Okay, but how many households are we talking about?
You've got almost 10 on Story Road area. You've got 3 or 4 up on
Four.
Clover,
4 on that, in that area.
4 on that area. You've got Mr. Roundtree and then one other house near Mr. Roundtree.
Okay, so
2,500 per house or 2,500 total?
For how?
No, that's the
We
appraisal.
got quotes from several companies on how much they would charge us for the appraisals. And one company came back and said, the low bid was 10,000 for the whole wall of wax.
So 2,500 gets this thing rolling.
That's good.
I'll make a motion, we do,
Second.
we do it.
Second.
second.
Thank you.
So,
Second.
well, can we pass it first? I made the motion and Mr. Murphy seconded it.
I got to drive by Mr. Roundtree's house tonight. I know he can shoot good.
Any more discussion?
That's right, that's right.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. All right, any staff comments? All right, commissioners?
Nothing.
No? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
So moved. Let's go home.